There's a pattern hiding in plain sight. A pattern that most people never notice. It's not taught in schools. Your financial advisor won't mention it. And the media? They ignore it completely. But this pattern has predicted every major economic collapse for the last 200 years. 1873, 1929, 2008, and now, all signs point to one date, 2026. This isn't some conspiracy theory or fear-mongering video. This is mathematics. This is history. This is the rhythm of the economy itself. A rhythm that repeats with the regularity of the seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter, growth, prosperity, stagnation, collapse. And right now, we're deep in winter's shadow. A century ago, a Russian economist named Nikolai Kondratiev discovered a long economic wave, a cycle that lasts between 40 and 60 years. He found that economies rise and fall in predictable phases. Innovation sparks growth. Growth creates excess. Excess turns into debt, and debt eventually collapses under its own weight. His findings were so threatening to Stalin's dream of eternal prosperity that Kondratiev was sent to a labor camp. He died there in 1938. But his theory, the Kondratiev Wave, lived on. Let's break that cycle down. Spring is the recovery after crisis. Debt is low. Optimism is cautious. Think of post-World War II America. The 1950s boom. The suburbs, the highways, and the television era. Summer is the boom years. Confidence runs high. Wages rise. Inflation starts climbing. The 1960s. Prosperity everywhere, but cracks forming underneath. Autumn is the plateau. The stagflation of the 1970s. Growth slows. Inflation bites. And debt piles up. Then comes winter. The reckoning. Debt collapses. Banks fail. Markets crash. The system resets. The Great Depression of the 1930s was a textbook, Kondratiev winter. Normally, each phase clears the excess and allows the next cycle to begin. But in 2008, something changed. That winter was supposed to reset the system. Instead, central banks stepped in. They bailed out the banks. They printed trillions, and they kept interest rates at zero for more than a decade. It worked. Temporarily. But instead of ending the winter, they only delayed it, and that delay created something new. The everything bubble stocks, real estate, bonds, crypto, even art and collectibles, all inflated together. For 15 years, money was cheap and abundant. Debt exploded to record highs. Now, that delayed winter is finally catching up, and the same data points that predicted every crash for 2 centuries are flashing the same warning. Again, 2026, let's look at the clues. The yield curve inversion, the most reliable recession signal in modern history, inverted in 2022 and stayed that way for over 2 years. It uninverted in September 2024. Every time that's happened, a recession followed within 6 to 18 months. That gives us a window from March 2025 to March 2026. Next, corporate credit spreads. They've been widening since late 2023. That usually happens 12 to 24 months before a crash. Again, late 2025 to late 2026. Then there's the velocity of money. How fast cash moves through the system. It peaked in early 2022 and has been slowing ever since. Historically, that slowdown leads to recession within 2 to 3 years. Right on cue, 2024 to 2025. Household debt is at record highs. Credit cards, auto loans, and mortgages are stretched to breaking. When debt service hits 15% of disposable income, crisis follows. We crossed that line in mid-20. 2418 months later brings us to late 2025 or early 2026, and here's the big one. Commercial real estate, $1.5 trillion in loans need to be refinanced by 2027. The peak hits in 2025 and 2026. These loans were written at 3% interest. Now they're being refinanced at 8%. The math doesn't work. Defaults are inevitable. When those defaults hit, regional banks fall. When banks fall, credit freezes, and when credit freezes, The entire economy stalls. That cliff? The first and second quarters of 2026. So what happens next? The Kondratiev winter always follows the same script. First comes the crack, something breaks, a bank, a corporation, a country. Late 2025 or early 2026. Authorities say it's contained. They said that in 1929. They said it in 2007. It's never contained. Then comes contagion. Fear spreads faster than facts. Investors pull back. Credit dries up. Confidence evaporates. This is the panic phase. Spring to summer 2026. Then comes the intervention. The Federal Reserve cuts rates. The government spends trillions. Markets bounce, and briefly, people think it's over. But it's not. Because the intervention doesn't fix the cause, it only delays the impact. Then comes the secondary collapse. Confidence breaks. Unemployment spikes. Asset prices fall for real. 40, 50, even 70%. This is the heart of winter. Late 2026 through 2028. Finally, after all the pain, comes reset and renewal. Debt is purged. The weak fall away. The survivors rebuild. New technologies rise. A new generation begins again. The next spring, probably around 2029 or 2030. It's harsh, but that's how every major collapse resets the system. It's the painful but necessary rebirth of capitalism. So what do you do with this knowledge? The goal isn't to panic, it's to prepare. Reduce exposure to overvalued markets. Hold cash, pay down debt, be liquid when everyone else is forced to sell. In every Kondratiev winter, wealth doesn't disappear, it just changes hands. From the unprepared to the prepared. The people who bought stocks in 1932 or real estate in 2009 built generational wealth out of crisis. The next chance like that won't come again for another 50 to 80 years. But to be ready, you need discipline now. When everyone else is celebrating market highs, that's your signal to move quietly. To shift from offense to defense, because by the time the panic hits the headlines, it's too late. If you're in debt, get out. If you're over-leveraged, scale back. If your portfolio is 90% stocks, consider trimming to 50. If you've got cash, keep it ready, and most importantly, prepare mentally. When fear dominates the news, when everyone is selling, when it feels like the end, that's when the seeds of the next boom are being planted. Winter doesn't last forever, but only those who survive it get to see the next spring. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes perfectly. Every cycle from the 1800s to now follows the same human pattern: euphoria, debt, denial, collapse, reset. The data is there. The math is there. The signs are flashing right now. The question is, will we see it this time? Or will we tell ourselves again, this time is different? Because it never is. The economy has seasons just like nature, and no matter how hard we try to fight it, winter always comes, cold cleansing necessary. The storm of 2026 isn't the end, it's the beginning of something new, but only for those who are ready. Winter's coming. The only question is, when it arrives, will you be frozen in fear or ready to plant the seeds of your next spring?